Welcome to the Growth Shift. I'm David Zilstra. Here's what I've learned after years in business. Every leader who's built something meaningful has a story, but the moment they had to shift, when failure forced innovation, when change became opportunity, when they chose growth over comfort. On this show, we dive into those pivotal moments, the setbacks that became breakthroughs, the strategic shifts that accelerated growth, and the frameworks that turned obstacles into opportunities. Because here's the truth. In a world where change is the only constant, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid failure. They're the ones who've learned to shift strategically through it. So whether you're facing your own pivot point or just want to learn from someone who's been there, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. This episode is brought to you by Valentix. At Valentix, we help B2B coaches and consultants who are struggling with generating consistent, high-quality leads, automating their client onboarding processes, and scaling their operations without simply adding more hours or headcount. Most of the time, our clients come to us frustrated because they're bogged down in manual tasks and feeling like they're missing out on the power of modern technology. But with the right strategy and AI-powered solutions, they're able to streamline their workflows, attract better opportunities, and achieve sustainable growth. If that sounds like you or someone you know, learn more at valentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on The Growth Shift, we are incredibly honored to host William DeTemple, a serial entrepreneur and master of business scaling. William's journey is a testament to vision and strategic execution, having founded and successfully monetized 4 rapid growth companies. As the founder of 9-figure company, he now dedicates his expertise to coaching businesses to achieve and exceed the $100 million revenue mark, often helping them navigate complex monetization strategies like stock swaps to preserve wealth. With a background of business dealings in over 70 countries, William brings a truly global and deeply experienced perspective to the table. His insights into building, scaling, and strategically exiting businesses are invaluable for any ambitious entrepreneur. William, welcome to The Growth Shift.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's an honor to have you. William, with a distinguished track record of founding and successfully scaling multiple rapid growth companies, you've clearly mastered the art of business acceleration. What initially sparked your drive to build and grow businesses, and how have those foundational experiences informed the strategic guidance you now provide to your clients?
Well, I guess it started when I was pretty young because I, I'm trying to think how to say this. I grew up on a ranch. If you know anything about ranching, you know there's no such thing as cash, okay? So I had to go out and find a job or create a job, and I actually got a paper route when I was 11 years old. There was, I think it was 24 papers on that route when I took over the route, and I built it to over 190 papers in the next 2.5 years. So
Door-to-door business as an 11-year-old, building a massive newspaper empire, that's tough.
yeah, I actually, this was when I grew up in Fraser Valley of British Columbia, and one of the things that really got me publicity was we had a blizzard one year, and my paper route spanned several miles. And so because I was on a ranch and I had my horse, I used my horse for helping carry the papers, and I delivered papers on horseback.
I wish I had a horse when I was delivering newspapers. That would have made things a lot easier, I'll tell you. Sorry, William, go on.
Anyhow, the Vancouver Sun, a newspaper, published a story on me, and I've still got the newspaper clippings and all that stuff. And so that even accelerated my sales growth more. That was my first lesson about publicity, marketing, etc. Besides doing hard work of going out and knocking on doors, door to door, trying to get people to buy the newspaper if they weren't already a subscriber. So I started off very young building business. So when I sold when I didn't sell the paper route, you couldn't sell them. But when I gave up the paper route and went on to other stuff, I learned more business opportunities. And then as I graduated high school and everything else, I'm trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And my father was a superintendent on the waterfront. And the interesting thing about that is he was always being asked to bring the family onto the ship to have dinner with the captain. And so we went on many different ships from all around the world, big cargo ships. And the captains always had toys from their native country, and that they would give them to my siblings and myself. And so we had this collection of very unique toys. And as I graduated high school and was starting to figure out what I was going to do and everything else, I came up with the idea. I thought, well, hey, why not start a toy business? So I contacted all these toy companies outside Canada and the US. They're all in Asia. And I got them all to send me samples of their toys. And I got together with the Seattle First Bank at the time. They agreed to do a back-to-back LC. And do you know what that is?
I'll share it with the audience for sake of not just myself, but anyone else.
Okay, a back-to-back LC is a back-to-back letter of credit. And what it does is the bank basically issues the letter of credit to the manufacturer, okay? For the manufacturer to be able to cash that letter of credit, they have to perform the stuff on the letter. And in our case, it was they had to deliver the product to the ship and have it shipped. You know, we paid for the shipping, but they had to deliver it to the ship. So I didn't have to come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy all this. And so we did this back-to-back LC, and I made my first business, or my first sale, you might say, was over $700,000 for all these toys and stuff, that all these mom and pop toy stores that used to exist, that don't exist anymore. They bought all these toys and that, and so that was great because I had over 50% margin on those deals. And so we continued building the toy business for quite a few years. And then we had a big public company come along and offered to buy us, because we had actually invented a couple of our own toys. And so this big public company came along and offered to buy us. And so they offered me so much money, I couldn't turn it down. So I sold the company. So then I went on and built another company. And
William, before we get to this next company, for the sake of the audience, I want to have a little bit more conversation here. I mean, you make things sound so easy and so linear, right? But if we're reading between the lines, things didn't just come naturally to you. I mean, first and foremost, we can see that you were raised on a ranch. You knew the necessity and need for hard work. You know, probably getting up before the sun and doing your chores, putting in the hours. You started, or you acquired a paper route when you were 11 years old. Through that, of course, you learned a little bit about sales, door-to-door knocking, but also, I'm sure, collecting invoices payable, right? Needing to collect the cash for that, stay on top of it. You learned resourcefulness and the power of marketing. You got on a horse, you delivered your newspapers, and you saw what can really happen with a little bit of maybe unintentional exposure there. And then you fell into the toy business. So you grew up at pretty well a toy empire. You had a large company come to acquire you. And I mean, you started another company after that. Surely you could have lived pretty comfortably on the money that you got from the acquisition of the company. Why decide to start another company?
well, you know, I guess it's the whole thing in my lifestyle. You know, one of the things I didn't mention, before we moved out to the ranch, we lived in Vancouver in the city, okay? And that's in British Columbia again. And my parents were Roman Catholic, and the closest Catholic school for me to attend was all the way across the city. So I would have to get up and be at the bus station at 7 a.m. to take the bus to downtown Vancouver, and then change buses and take another bus out to the school to get there in time for school that started at 9 a.m., but normally get there about 8:30 or so. And so that was, you know, the start was at 6 years of age. I'm walking down to the bus stop and taking a city bus across the city, and then doing the same thing coming home. Now, my father was a veteran of World War II, and so one of the things he was all adamant about was that we learn self-defense. So I had to also stay 2 nights a week after school to go take boxing lessons to learn how to defend myself, you know? And additionally, being Catholic, during Lent, there's a 40 days Lent, we had to go to Mass before we went to school. So I had to go leave even earlier during Lent to get to the Mass on time and still make it to school on time. So I learned self-discipline at a very young age. And I guess I learned that there's a solution to every problem. Okay. And I do that with all my clients now. I don't care what their problems are, and they all have problems. In our coaching, we're able to find the solution to their problem and help them scale their business. So if you want me to go back to some of my younger stuff, because I actually founded and built 4 companies before moving to Florida, which is when I got to Florida, I was like a fish out of water. And when I moved to Florida, I couldn't figure out what to do because Florida is a hospitality state. By that I mean there's Disney World, Universal Studios, all this different stuff. There's all the theme parks, there's all the beaches, more beaches than any state in the union. There was, just a myriad of things going on. But there was only small businesses. Everything in Florida was very small businesses. There was no big businesses. So I couldn't do the things that I had been doing in California. Because when I was in California, I joined the Tech Coast Angels. I'd made investments into a lot of entrepreneurial startups. I'd done a whole pile of things. And so now here I am in Florida, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. And a good friend of mine from California said, William, with all your experience, knowledge, and wisdom, why don't you coach business owners how to scale and grow their companies? And I thought, hey, that's a great way of giving back. 22 years ago, we're just about to enter the 23rd year in the first quarter of next year, I've been coaching business owners how to scale and grow their companies. It's the old story, you don't know what you don't know. Well, I'm in my 70s now. And I've got a whole lifetime full of experience, knowledge, and wisdom that I share with my clients. And of course, being coaching for over 22 years, we've run into all types of challenges that our clients come across. And so I've learned a tremendous number of lessons in that process too, in finding them the solution that they need to help them scale and grow their companies. And our goal, why we named the company Nine Figure Company, is because 9 figures is $100 million. And my goal is to coach every client and get them to at least $100 million and hopefully more. And as I think our biggest success to date was Harold Mills, who we grew to over $2 billion.
Jeez. Hey, before we get to that, and I think the audience is pretty intrigued now, but I'd love to learn a little bit more here. I mean, it sounds like one of the most significant shifts for you, the growth shift we could call it, wasn't necessarily a realization that came to you on your own or a lesson you learned on your own, but it was something that a friend said to you that sort of paved the path forwards, right? You saw it as a great opportunity. Of course, you see great opportunities. You are a businessman. We can all tell. But, with the experience that you have and the experience you've had after that shift. I mean, you've survived the dot-com boom, right? We could say bubble as well there, perhaps. The '08 crash, right? There's been a lot of change with technology up until today. Something, you said 22 going on 23 years, and you help companies scale to 9 figures and more. For the sake of the entrepreneur in the audience who is struggling right now to even break that $5 or $10 or $20 million mark, what do you see being some of the biggest internal challenges that business owners face or that they need to solve to really be able to scale their businesses to 9 figures or beyond?
Well, the fact of the matter is they don't know what they don't know.
As you said.
Okay.
Yes.
And the thing is, there's 8 primary internal practices every company must have to achieve great success. Okay. And in addition to that, there's 4 primary external practices they must have to achieve massive success. And so with the business coaching that we do, first of all, we don't charge by the hour. We do it on a flat fee basis. So we're not out to gouge clients and have them pay us a whole lot of money. Most of the people out there are consulting firms, and they'll charge you, thousands of dollars and do all this stuff. And, you know, I've made enough money in my life. It's not the money, it's the giving back that I love doing. Okay. And so coaching these businesses, I help them scale and grow. I create new jobs, and we help the whole country. And the fact of the matter is, small businesses create more jobs than all the Fortune 1000 companies combined. And so my passion is still about creating good, sustainable jobs and helping business owners scale and grow, and then teaching them how to monetize when they're ready to monetize. And different clients monetize at different levels, because some, when you get past $100 million, they're saying, okay, yeah, let's sell the business and let's go on. But like Harold Mills, we scaled him to $2 billion before he finally said, you know what, it's time that I monetize this and do something else. And so I don't know, to me, it's about creating good, sustainable jobs. That's really what my passion is. And I help by helping entrepreneurs scale and grow their businesses, because it's small businesses that create the majority of jobs in the United States and actually in most countries.
So, William, you mentioned something here: unknowns being what holds businesses back from perhaps being able to scale without outside help or outside expertise. Right? You helped one of your clients scale to over 2 billion. What sort of unknowns were you able to uncover and perhaps fill those gaps to help them achieve such an incredible transformation?
Well, again, just because of my life experience, when we started working with him, he was strictly a U.S. corporation. Okay. And then we showed him how there was opportunities outside the U.S. And so we ended up taking him to a whole bunch of different countries and opening up doors and making connections and everything else. And that's what allowed him to scale that company to $2 billion. He didn't know what he didn't know. And I've just had a whole lot of life experience that most people have never had and would never dream of having. And so we're incredibly great at helping companies scale and grow, no matter what their needs are.
Now, you mentioned your real passion is helping create more jobs, right? Many reasons, I'm sure, stimulating the economy being one of them, but also just providing a better quality of life to many people out there who perhaps need better jobs, right? And you're able to directly impact people and families and many other businesses as well, I'm sure, in the same way. We're in a pretty crowded market. Surely with what you do, you charge flat fees, right? You're not trying to price gouge. You're truly leading with value. But we are in a very crowded market with many business coaches and consultants entering into the noise, and definitely with less experience and insights as yourself. For a business such as yours, with results like you have, and maybe some of the audience are listening thinking, help get my clients great results as well, but we're in a crowded market. I mean, surely, William, people must be knocking down your door to come and work with you. What's the reality of the market for a company that can have such a great impact as yours?
The fact of the matter is, entrepreneurs are passionate about what they're doing, okay? All of them. But they don't know what they don't know. And again, it's one of these things. It's, when we start working with a company, number one, most of the time they're undercapitalized. Okay, that's one thing. Another thing that they're doing is they're not getting enough margins on the products or services that they're selling. And so we do a full due diligence on the company to find out where their strengths and where their weaknesses are, so that we can help guide them through that stuff. Because again, a lot of these companies, I talk about the 8 primary internal practices every company must have. Okay. And most entrepreneurs have no idea what those 8 primary internal practices are.
Well, you'll have to share them with the audience now then, William.
Okay. Well, first of all, there's the founder, the person, the passion that's driving the business. Okay. But the next thing is marketing. Without great marketing, it doesn't matter how passionate you are, you're not going to find prospects. Okay, so marketing is essential to find good prospects. Once you've found the good prospect, now you got to have sales to convert that prospect into a client. Once you've converted them into a client, operations has to take over and deliver the product or service that you're selling. So, now you've got accounting, and this is another area that most entrepreneurs are very poor at, and they don't know what margins they're really making off the product, and that's where accounting comes in, and it does its due diligence and says, hey, you're selling this too cheaply, or you're doing this, or you're doing that. So you got to have accounts receivable, accounts payable, and all that stuff. And that's one of the other things that we end up with is accounts receivable. A lot of people end up with a large amount of accounts receivable, and that becomes a royal pain in the butt. Because if you don't manage that closely, next thing you know, you're never going to get paid by that customer. Okay? So accounting, every one of these departments is super important. A company will not survive without them all. So the next one is human resources. And human resources is not about hiring and firing people. Human resources is about helping manage people, okay? And so, yeah, they'll run ads, but actually we do most of run ads for all of our clients because they don't want to be inundated with 5,000 applications. So we run the ads, and nobody knows who the end customer is, and we pick out 3 to 6 top-notch people that are the best for the client. And then we have the client interview those 3 to 6 people. And if they don't like any of them, then we give them another 3 to 6 people to until they find the people that are the right fit for them. And chemistry is very important when you're building a company, and you've got to have that good connection with your executive team that you're building. So we do all of that. That's all included in our services. Okay. In addition to that, okay, so we've got human resources. And so human resources is about managing people, not hiring and firing people. And so what happens a lot of times is somebody will come to human resources and say, hey, so-and-so is having an issue. You might want to go talk to them. And sometimes that'll be from another employee in that same department. Sometimes it'll be from another department saying, hey, something's going wrong over here, and you better check it out and see what's going on. And so human resources is really about helping make sure everybody has the right training that they need, that they do all the things, and they're making people feel like this is a great place to be. So the turnover in a well-managed company is very low. And employee turnover can be massively expensive for our clients or for any company. It's really a challenge. So then after that, there is, we got HR, and then there's IT. Now, when I started off in business, IT really didn't exist because in 1976, when I started my first company, there were no computers, okay? I actually bought a mini computer in 1979. I paid $125,000 for that computer in 1979 because, we were using general ledgers and all that stuff and everything else, and I was watching some stuff and learned about this thing, and I thought, well, hey, this is a better way of doing things than what we're doing. And then, of course, PCs started coming out in the 80s, and then 90s, the internet came out, and then everything started evolving to a whole new level. So, everything's always evolving, and that's like AI is the current evolution. Drives me crazy, but, we have to deal with it. So that's what we do. We coach companies how to scale and grow. And those are the 8 primary internal practices.
So these are the 8 primary internal practices that you help solve or, perhaps make better within companies you help coach around to improve. You have a pretty big or profound impact with the clients that you work with. I'd love to learn a little bit more about what your goal for a 9-figure company is, right? It sounds like impact is one of those things. Can you tell us a little bit more? What's the vision for what you're doing now? What are you actually working towards? Money is no longer the goal, right? What is it that you want to achieve through a 9-figure company?
Creating good, sustainable jobs. That's my passion. And AI has disrupted a lot of stuff. And it's, some companies are cutting staff because they think AI can do what staff has been doing. And in my opinion, AI is a nice tool, but it's artificial. You know, it has no intelligence. So that's just my opinion about AI.
Well, hey, let's dive into AI now then, because I'm sure the audience are very curious about this. Before we start talking about perhaps the negative impact that AI can have, I mean, first and foremost, William, you've seen the entire evolution of technology in business. From working with general ledgers, like you said, at a time when, buying a mini computer was probably filling half of a room. You saw those mini computers, the internet, now AI. While, perhaps AI isn't something that you're personally looking into or learning about directly yourself, what is your perspective on the rate of change and growth that companies can experience today when they strategically adopt new technologies, AI being the latest?
Well, obviously evolution never stops, okay? And that's what AI is all about, is the evolution that it's creating. And, as long as we're creating good sustainable jobs and keeping the people employed and doing all these other things that are essential to our economy, I'm fine with it. People that can understand that and use it and benefit from it and help their company scale and grow, that's great. I'm all for it. I'm just being very honest. It's over my head. Okay. I know some people that are doing AI, using AI for different things. And AI has, to me, it's just another tool. So if you study it and learn how to use it properly, I think it's a great asset for the company. For my business, we work one-on-one with our clients. Okay. And we work with the whole management team, not just the owner of the business, because we've got to have everybody, working together and creating synergy and everything else. And that really takes a lot of work. And most founders don't have the time to spend the time talking to all the different department heads and doing everything. They're focused on growing the business, and that's where they should be. And, it's a great resource having us, but AI can't do what we do. So, but owners can think that AI is going to be able to do this or do that or do the next thing, and it's a great tool. But that's all it is a tool.
So AI is a tool, right? It needs to be assessed as a tool, not as, a silver bullet, let's say. From your vantage point, having coached numerous businesses through very various stages of growth, then what are the critical questions or maybe frameworks that you might advise your clients to use when assessing new tools and technologies like AI to determine if it's a shiny object or if it's going to have perhaps even a negative impact on their long-term business goals? Not trying to replace jobs, or if that was someone's goal, I mean, it could have a pretty profound impact on both sides of the equation. But yes, William, what were perhaps those critical questions or frameworks that you might bring to your clients to assess?
Well, if they think AI is going to lower their overhead by reducing the number of employees, I think they're going to learn that it's going to turn around and blow up in their face.
Why so?
Well, AI can't think. It can't. It can do chores, it can do tasks, it can do a lot of different things. But it doesn't have the brain. It doesn't have the ability to be able to think and analyze and really do stuff that, should be done. As I've mentioned, there's 8 executives in every company. There should be eight departments, okay? Now, those departments need to talk to each other and communicate with each other, okay? Because communication is key to being able to get the company to scale and grow. And that is a big responsibility of the presidents a lot of time. And a lot of presidents get so involved in what they're thinking is the most important thing they need to do that they're not always paying attention to every department in the company, especially when it's a growth business, because they think HR is going to take care of that, or whatever the case may be. And they need to understand the value that we bring to the table, because when we're working with a company and the company is growing, which is our whole focus, and we're adding all these extra people and doing all this stuff, we build a relationship with the whole management team and with all the staff in the company. And so if they're having a problem, oftentimes they'll come talk to us and say, hey, we got this situation going on over here, but I can't get, the vice president or the president or whoever it may be to pay attention to what we're talking about. And so they can bend our ear and we can turn around and talk to the executive that needs to be talked to and say, hey, help me understand what you're doing and why you're doing it this way. And maybe it's poor communication between senior management and the staff. And so once we learn what the issue is, we can go back to the staff and we can either help them understand what they're not understanding, or they can help us clarify what that manager is not understanding. And so it's all about great communications, and that's what we do, is provide a very great tool of communicating with the whole management team.
Communication is pivotal, right? It is one of the most important things within business communication and relationships, right? You need proper communication to foster relationships. Now, people are using AI these days to leverage it for making tasks easier, right? Doing the chores and making that easier. From your perspective and in your experience, William, is there a point where those relationships and that communication will start to be at risk if technology is leveraged too much? And if so, how can companies identify if technology and tools are starting to cause problems rather than providing solutions?
That's a very good question. And again, that's one of those things that it's very difficult when you're inside the business to identify these type of things. And that's where us being from the outside looking in, we see things that people in the company don't see. And so we can often identify things and then bring it to the attention of the department head or the founder, president of the company, whoever that may be. Our job is not to run the company or do anything else. It's to simply coach business owners how to scale and grow the companies and to work with all their various departments. And that, by the way, that includes, we introduce them to good law firms that will make sure that they're doing everything appropriately. Same thing with accounting firms. One of the things that drives me crazy is a lot of entrepreneurs think if they hire a standalone accountant or a standalone attorney, that they're going to get better costs. It's going to be cheaper than hiring a decent law firm or a decent accounting firm. The fact of the matter is, those big firms have the resources to do things far faster and far less expensively than a small law firm does, because a small law firm is looking to how much billing can they do, because they need billing to generate the revenue for the firm. Whereas a large law firm is not looking at small things like that, especially with entrepreneurial companies. There's a law firm I've been working with for over 50 years now, and their whole philosophy is about helping small companies scale and grow. And they actually have a division in the law firm that focuses on entrepreneurial companies to help them grow. And it's very beneficial both for the law firm, because if they're able to help the company grow, their billing is going to go up. And same thing happens with accounting firms. And so when a lot of our clients are trying to use a very small law firm or a very small accounting firm because they think they're going to get it cheaper, they're wrong. Okay? So does that answer your question?
Definitely answers some questions and is always providing more value and insight. William, one last question for you. With your vast experience from building and selling multiple companies to coaching businesses to 9 figures and above, you have unparalleled perspective, I believe. So to conclude, based on your philosophy that, you don't know what you don't know, and the importance of strategic guidance, of course, what might be the single most important piece of advice that you'd offer to our audience of entrepreneurs and, growth-focused companies who are aiming for rapid scale and strategic monetization?
Well, obviously, I'm going to recommend that they hire a 9-figure company to do their coaching, to coach them, because we can raise them capital, we can do everything that they need done. And as I said, we don't charge by the hour, so we don't have they're not facing a big fee. And we can open so many doors for them from aspect that you could possibly think of. So I hope that answers the question. If it doesn't, let me know.
I think
I'll
it
try
definitely
again.
answers that you know that you can help these people, and I think they have a pretty good idea that they know that you can help them as well. But for our audience, and for the entrepreneurs out there who might not yet be at the point where monetization or looking for funding makes sense, and working with a consulting firm like yours is desirable but not yet attainable, is there anything that you would say is maybe perhaps fundamentally the most important practice or discipline that any entrepreneur needs to establish in order to get to that point where, working with you would be a no-brainer?
Well, you made a comment there about capital, and I'll tell you, capital is the lifeblood of every company. Being undercapitalized is going to damage a company. And so it's one of the things that we first focus on is helping them increase their available capital. Now, we're not wanting them to go out and just spend the money. We help them get lines of credit that they wouldn't normally think of getting because we've got sources that they don't have, that they don't even know about. But we get them lines of credit where it gives them the ability to do things that they've been holding back on. Capital is the lifeblood of every company. So we have no problem helping a company get significant amounts of capital for them, and we can get it in tranches so that, like with Harold Mills, we didn't start off with the amount of money that he needed by the time he got up to $2 billion. We started off with a lot smaller amount of money, but it's a process, and everything in business is a process. Every department's got its own processes, everything that goes on. And so what we do is we coach business owners how to do all these different things, and we share all these decades of knowledge, wisdom, and experience that we've got. And, bottom line is we can help them no matter what type of business they're in, no matter what country they're in. We've helped clients all over the world.
Cash is king. You need cash, and a business needs cash to breathe, right? It's the lifeblood. It's the oxygen of any business, isn't it?
Exactly. You taken phrases that I'm used to using all the time.
Well then, William, for our audience who might be ready to connect with you and, perhaps scale their business to 9 figures and beyond, what would be the best way to find you online or to contact you?
Well, our website is ninefigurecompany.com. That's the number 9, the word figured, company.com. And there's a lot of information on our website. And obviously, if you want to call us, the phone number is 561-281. You can call, and we'll get right back to you if we don't answer the phone right away because, we're working with clients all the time. So we definitely will get back as soon as we can. And if they want to email me, it's DeTemple at ninefigurecompany.com is my email address if they want to email me. So,
Thanks again for joining us on the Growth Shift today.
hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. And that's a wrap on another episode of The Growth Shift. If this conversation sparked something for you, whether it's a new perspective on failure, a strategy you want to try, or just the reminder that every setback can become a setup for something bigger, hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid change. They're the ones who shift strategically through it. If you're ready to build the systems that help you grow without the chaos, head over to valentix.io. We help businesses like yours scale smarter, not harder. I'm David Zylstra, and I'll see you in the next shift.